Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Please take a seat. So there's plenty of seats here on the side as well. Please grab a seat. Please grab a seat. There are a bunch more seats here on the side as well. Please grab a seat. We're going to get started. All right. So welcome. It's great to see you here. I'm SC Moari. I'm the founder of Products That Count. This is the 3.5-year anniversary of Products That Count. We're kicking off 2018 in the rain. It's going to be a lucky sign for us. Since our beginning, Products That Count has grown to be now one of the largest networks of early adopters and product managers in the world. We have online programs like video, podcasts, newsletters, which most of you get, that reach hundreds of thousands of people every month, product folks, growth folks. And then we have offline product programs in all the major tech hubs. We're in San Francisco, New York, San Jose. We announced Seattle today. We're also in London, and Boston is our next destination. So we're really building a community based on apprenticeship of people who love products. Before I kick it off, I want to tell you a few things. One, I want to tell you that what made Products That Count successful, and what I hope will continue to make it successful, is that the speakers we bring are all executives at the top of their game who share something unique about their craft, something they have never shared before, and today is no exception. I also want to tell you that the programs we're offering would not be possible without our partners, and they're all listed here, and they're all fantastic. So Yelp is our host, has been our host in San Francisco since our very first event, and they're amazing. The recruiting team is right behind you where the Yelp sign is. And just so you know, they're also hiring engineers. But they're hiring product folks, analytics, design, marketing. The Amplitude team, we have Justin here. Where is Justin? If you don't mind standing up. Yes. So Amplitude is a company that provides analytics for product. It's a company that I'm really proud to have also invested in. If you want to talk to Justin about it, he's right here. M.Particle, and David is right here at the front. It's great to see you here. M.Particle is a platform that integrates all of your data together. And if you work for a company that starts to have a little bit of complexity, it's super important. So I encourage you to talk to him if you have any question. And then Pragmatic Marketing, where is our, yes, hi, pricing expert from Pragmatic Marketing, which is a great training organization if you're looking to either grow your team or, and I can hear a fan clapping, either if you're looking to grow and train your product team or get some training yourself, he's the person to talk to. So thank you to all four of you. And with that, I want to introduce our speaker. So we got introduced through like a pretty random serendipity, which I actually can't quite remember. That's my brain like just going.
Morgan Cantrell.
That's right. We got introduced through one of your mentees, who's a fantastic and very loyal member. And Chris and I really connected. I really enjoyed his perspective. This year, one of the key themes that we're trying to push forward is that enterprise software is no different from consumer when it comes to what it takes to build a great product. You still need to have something that's quote-unquote beautiful, i.e. efficient, with emotional connections. You still need something that's super personalized, supported with a lot of data, a lot of analytics, and you still need to have something that keeps evolving and growing. And I really enjoyed like listening to Chris' perspective, so I figured he would benefit from, or we would benefit from hearing his perspective. So welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. This is mic'd? Okay. All right, cool. Can we put the first slide up? So thank you. So my name is Chris. Yeah, I was the former head of product at Box. Actually, when we first started talking about this, it was probably August, and I was still at the company, and I just left. So 12/29 was my last day. You could think of me as looking for an opportunity to just take some time down and live life a little bit, because sometimes we forget to live life when we're kicking ass in a job, right? And that was one of the things I really look forward to. So I'm taking photos, buying violins. I'm a board member at the San Francisco Symphony. I'm doing a bunch of other things. It's just my pastimes right now, and it's my pleasure to be here today. So my career goes back about 30 years, almost 30 years. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of these things. This is called a journey line. A journey line is a line that kind of goes through your life and career, and the green things on top are things that kind of made you happy or positive in your career, and then the things that red kind of showed disappointments or tough parts of your life. So I thought I'd start with my journey line with you for just a few minutes so you guys could kind of see where I came from and what my background was. So my journey line starts back close to 1990, maybe a little earlier than that, when I was in high school. I grew up in Illinois, in Naperville, Illinois, and my dad had kind of built his whole career at AT&T Bell Laboratories. And so I grew up in Naperville, and my mom worked for Northern Illinois Gas, and I won a scholarship at Northern Illinois Gas when I was graduating high school senior. You can see my picture. It's big hair, the glasses. I showed this picture to my daughter, and she said, "Yeah, Dad, you look like a real winner." So I accepted a scholarship, and I used that to work my first summer in the NIGAS mailroom, where I had a major fail. I cost the company $4,000 in bad postage. And so they shipped me to the microcomputer department the next year. They said, maybe he'll do less damage up there. And that was when we were deploying 286 machines, Novell NetWare, a lot of cool networking products. And that's where I kind of got into the computer scene a bit. And I went to Michigan as an undergrad. Actually, I was born in Ann Arbor. My dad did his PhD at Michigan. And you can see, this is a picture of me and my roommate, John. You can see there's a Mac Plus back there. See that? If you see that little computer back there. So I kind of grew up in the age when there were new user interfaces coming out, where PCs and Macs were starting to make an impact in the marketplace. I joined Oracle in 1990. So I was employee 9999 at Oracle. My wife was employee 9998. And I worked on Oracle's first PL SQL compiler. So I was a coder, I was an engineer on that team. And one of the things that happened upon joining was that Oracle had this massive scandal where they were booking revenue on products that had not yet shipped. So we didn't have great accounting rules for software back then. We laid off 10% of the workforce. I still remember that day because they laid off the person on the right and left, and they walked them out the door. That made a huge impression on me because that made me want to know more about the business. I just didn't understand the business of software, and that's actually what put me eventually in business school. So I had a huge curiosity about that, and that kind of sent me off to Wharton a few years later. That's my roommate, Matt. The two of us are doing Walnut Walk at Wharton. Matt is currently the head of product at 23andMe. He used to be the head of product at DocuSign. So then after that, after Wharton, followed my way. Actually, I just followed my classmates. We were like lemmings coming out of business school, right? So I went to Boston, where I worked for a management consulting firm, and we launched the OnStar division out of General Motors. I spent 3 years working at GM on OnStar, and then became a partner at Mercer. Later, after that, decided that I was ready to come back to software. So came back to software. CJ is my first daughter's name, her initials. And then I worked for Blue Martini Software. Anybody know Blue Martini? You'd have to really go back to know Blue Martini. One of the last two big IPOs of the 2000 bust. So we went public in 2000. I joined the company as the fourth product manager and then ended up as head of product about a year and a half later. We were public at one point, and then it was just a disaster. The 2000s kind of 2000 to 2003 and 4 was just a massive problem. Lots of companies went out of business. Blue Martini was really struggling. I went through 8 layoffs. So I did 8 layoffs on my team over time. It's one of those things that when you do those things, it makes you less good as an entrepreneur. And one of the hardest things about going through a long career is you have ups and downs, and you're less good as an entrepreneur the older you get. And the reason is, I think, so I'm going to just put that out there. The reason I think that is because you experience failure. You know what it looks like. And sometimes you experience it in a form that's highly personal. You see people laid off. You see people, go home, on a day they didn't expect to go home. One of those things that makes you cautious, slows you down. So I joined a startup after that because I wanted to kind of get some of that back. Worked for a company called Tacit that was later acquired by Oracle. And after that, went to Yahoo. This is when Jerry Yang was coming back into Yahoo as the CEO. And I worked for a guy named Ash Patel, who was chief product officer. And I came in with one job, and it was switched to another really quickly. I ran the Yahoo developer programs. That was key in my career because I learned a lot about developers, REST APIs, developer hack days, those kinds of things. And that became one of the specialties in my time at Yahoo. I made a major mistake at Yahoo, which we can talk about over beers. But there's a lot in the news and very publicly around me in my time at Yahoo that I'd love to forget. But again, mistakes that you make, right, in your career. Later, I ended up running Delicious and Yahoo Groups. And this is when Yahoo was really declining. My dad passed away. This was 2011. And this is when I needed to be renewed. And sometimes you just get lucky. You find the place where the company's going well and you are going well, or you're a good fit for it. And that's what happened to me in Box. So I joined Box about 6.5 years ago. We were about 200 people or so. And yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of our IPO. So we've been public for a number of years. And of course, that brings me here to today. So that's a quick rundown of who I am. And so what I would say about this in general is that the more diverse experiences you have in a career, the better. There's no such thing as a straight line through careers. Careers are very zigzaggy. It's all about learning. And if you can kind of find your way through that, and I think you'd end up in the right place at the end of the day, despite the trials and tribulations that you have. All right, so let's talk about enterprise software. So back to enterprise software and the topic that, of today. So enterprise software, delivering and building enterprise software used to be really, really straightforward. So first of all, you picked a functional area of interest. It wasn't that hard. Sales, marketing, engineering, HR, whatever it was, you picked a functional area, or you might have picked a vertical market that you wanted to attack. Then you'd create a reasonable data model and write some business logic. So who can tell me who the guys are on the left here? Anyone know? SAP. Pretty good. The guy who's second in is Hasso Plattner, the core guy who kind of brought SAP to market. 1972, this picture. Guys on the right? Oracle, yeah, that's right. Larry Ellison, the tall guy. Bob Miner, the shorter guy. 1977, they founded this company called SDL. They were the ones that took a project from IBM on relational databases and commercialized it. Right? So they created the initial backbone for enterprise software in today's market. But the next step after creating a data model, writing some business logic, was you glued some UI on it. You didn't have designers, or maybe you had a designer, but really what you did was you built a form. And so, in fact, this I took from the SAP blog from March of last year. So they're still just building forms, right? Imagine this is the project the project that you're working on, right? Incredible, right? So and then after that, this is pretty simple. You ported it, right? So you put it on every machine that could run in a data center somewhere. You verticalized it. You said, I'm going to make SAP for retail, SAP for manufacturers, SAP for healthcare, whatever that was. You sold it. You hired really expensive sales guys to sell it, which is still happening today, but you put expensive sales teams on the road to sell it. You hung out with Gartner analysts, right? Because this is how people make decisions in the enterprise software business on the other side. They go to the Gartner Magic Quadrant. They see who the leaders are. They shortlist the 5 or 6 that are there, and they put them through some RFP process, and then at the end, a winner pops out. This is Box after 6 years of whining and dining Gartner analysts, right? It's a ton of work if you've never done it before. It's one of the features of being an enterprise software. And then when all that was done, you asked Accenture to help you glue it into your customer's infrastructure. This wasn't super complicated in terms of, it was the formula, it was the same formula, and anybody who works in enterprise software will kind of recognize some of these components of how they're building products. And then finally, when you get big, Larry will buy you, it turns out. So Larry went on a shopping spree over the past, let's call it 20, 25 years, where he bought almost every single major software company in the enterprise software space of any size. These are, almost all of these are multi-billion-dollar acquisitions of software companies they glued into Oracle. So if you look at that, then the question would be, well, why would you want to be in enterprise software? You're building like pretty much, departmental software products that end up getting, driven into enterprise software companies, and then they get rolled up in some form. And I think today, in today's world, enterprise software is more interesting than ever before. So first of all, in 1999, Salesforce.com created a path for software companies to deploy software quickly to small enterprises, right? So they built the first SaaS model, they created the first SaaS pricing model, and they allowed companies to get comfortable with the idea of cloud software. You guys remember the no software kind of logos that were everywhere when Salesforce started as a company. And so Salesforce really paved the way for a lot of today's companies in terms of how we actually build software and bring it to market. The second thing that really happened that was important was in 2008 and forward, the Microsoft dominance on the desktop essentially ended. So what happened was Microsoft had a 30-plus year run, kind of call it since 1980, of having PCs and MS-DOS and Windows, and that ended as soon as we had iPhones and Android phones, and so computing devices changed the landscape, and so that makes the enterprise way more interesting for people who are building software today. Consumerization of enterprise tech, it turns out that you guys could bring your own software into the company today, and I can't stop you. I can't stop you from using it. Like my LTE setup on my iPad lets me use whatever I want, and unless they're gonna confiscate my iPad, they can't actually stop me from using what I want. So most companies have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of applications that their employees bring into the company today to use, and they try to block them at the firewall now. So you see companies like SkyHigh and Netscope pop up where they're trying to actually proxy all the traffic internally and then block all of the software that's coming in. You can't do that. Right? It's a fail strategy. So when we build enterprise software today, we actually have to deliver it into the environment where somebody wants to use it and is actively interested in using it. Unlike before, when we could just give it to somebody and say, you're forced to use it, sorry. And so that has changed enterprise tech a lot. And then finally, we're finally seeing social and collaboration products emerge. I assume almost all of you guys are using Slack in some form, yes? There were a couple of years ago, there was an effort to kind of build products like this. Yammer was one of those companies. Jive was another one of those companies. We thought there was going to be this big social software revolution. It didn't happen. Actually, it didn't happen because Yammer got sold. So what ended up happening was the top company in the space, the most dangerous technology company in the space with the best people, got bought by Microsoft. And that kind of killed the business for roughly 2.5 years before you saw a product like Slack emerge. And now you have Facebook at work, you have the Microsoft Teams products, so now you're starting to see this come back. So we're starting to see some social and collaboration products emerge, and that's kind of an interesting feature in the landscape. So on to Box. So Box was founded in 2005. The two guys on your left, that's Aaron in his hat and Dylan on the headphones. These are the two founders. They founded the company when they were 19 years old. All four of these guys were high school classmates up in Mercer Island, up in Washington. And they decided to found this company together. This is the picture on the right is a picture of the back of Dylan's father's chocolate factory, where they bought a server and put a server in place. And that was where they were storing everyone's files. So they bought and set up physically their own server. And the whole idea behind Box was that people were moving files around using USB drives, but the cloud was a much cleaner way to move files in a lot of cases and share them. But that was just the initial observation. So cloud and SaaS, again, one of the big first impacts, and their ability to kind of build their own hardware or add, construct their own server and then stick it on the internet was a big deal for them at the time. So from the very beginning, the four founders of Box focused on building a company that would survive in the long run. They really cared about building a company that lasted. And so all 4 of these guys today are still at the company. Jeff is the head of engineering, Aaron's the CEO, Dylan's the CFO. It's really unusual to see founding teams continue to play big E-staff roles, call it 13 years after the original founding of the company. I give these guys huge credit. And then the other thing they did was, because they really wanted to build a great company, they chose to raise a shit ton of money. Box raised $559 million over the course of, let's call it, 10 years to get the company to this stage. It was the only way they could see to do it. In fact, a lot of these guys took big ownership stake hits in order for that to happen. They knew they had to invest this much to get it going. So today, the company deploys about $500 million of capital each year, but this is now that we're public, right, in a much, much bigger company. So 3 early product decisions paid off for us. The first, administrative consoles. So a lot of Box users in this room? A lot of people have seen Box, used it. So the most important thing that the company did early on was they built an administrative console to manage teams of people who are using the product. So we could then manage security, manage access, those kinds of things. And that was a huge decision, right? So this did not come out of the gate as an individual consumer product. It pivoted very, very quickly to the enterprise with administrative controls. The second thing they did really well was they built a really nice sharing mechanism so people could easily share folders, bring people into folders, share and collaborate really cleanly. And this was a big deal, right? So the social and collaborations trends that I'm talking about tonight are the same trends that have been there for probably a good kind of 10 years, 15 years. It's just starting to manifest in new social products today. And then finally, they had a really nice early freemium push in something that any Box employee would recognize. We talk about landing and expanding. That is that we will land in an organization with a deployment of 10 people, and then hopefully next week it'll be 20 people, then it'll be 30 people, and then all of a sudden we'll have a nice path. And that was really an early part of the push, and a lot of the smaller businesses that we served kind of came aboard in that form through freemium land and expand. So I joined in 2011, and the big question was, how do we grow as fast as possible from what was a 25 million run rate? We were probably not quite even 20 million in revenue, but it was 17, 18 million in revenue, but we're running at 25 million getting out the door. A lot of you guys are in software companies of this size today. I talked to a whole bunch of companies in recent months where you're just sitting 20 to 25 million or 15 to 25 million, and how do you exit this? This is a tough phase to exit from because you're just big enough to have market fit with your product. And on the other side of it, you're just small enough that almost anything you do feels like you're just incrementalizing on whatever revenue base that you have. So I have 4 product stories I'm going to tell out of the time for us, and just in the lessons learned. I'll talk about these 4 stories, and then we'll hopefully that'll help you think through a couple of things you might be seeing. So first of all, a fateful outsourcing call that we made early on that affected the entire history of the company. The move to get on a trend, so finding a big trend and wave to run, which is really, really important for most companies of this size. A move to platform, probably the most overused word that we use here in Silicon Valley in software is platform, right? But a move to platform and how we did that. And then finally, an over-rotation of enterprise features, right? And at any time you're looking at user-side features or enterprise features, how do you rotate your resources and what happens when you do? So I have a bunch of thoughts on all of those. So let me start with the first story. Logo is Dropbox, yes. So the first story that I'm telling is that, like, we hit this, we actually got to a decent product market fit on the enterprise side, and the demand that we got from everybody was, all of our people use Dropbox at home. You guys need to have a sync product. And so right around 2010, 2011, we were looking at the engineering resources that we had in place and figuring out how in the world we were going to build sync. So the initial team looking at this problem said, all right, well, I have a content store. This is where I store all the files in Box. And then I have an interface of some form. And then whatever applications attached to it, web applications or anything else, are going to be glued through that interface, right? And we said, well, desktop, anything on the desktop, this is just going to be another client. So what we need to do is just find a way to get this built by people who know how to do desktop, which is not us. And so the question was, how hard can that be, right? So we gave the project to some contractors and managed it with a program manager. That was our initial sync product. We thought, this Dropbox thing that those guys do, we can do it with a bunch of contractors. And so that was the decision made, because you just didn't, you you guys know what this feeling is. I don't have any more engineers to build this. I have a lot of pressure. We got to get going. There's a lot of push on this Dropbox thing. Maybe someday Dropbox will come into the enterprise and become a problem for us. We got to move on it. So that was what happened. Like really, really bad move. It's a move that has affected us for the entire duration of my stay at the company. It still affects us today after all of this time. And if you ever want just a snippet of what it looks like to put a product out that people don't like, go onto our community forums and search. It's not hard. They're all public. You can actually see what's going on the community forums. And so the problem for us was two things. A, we consistently overestimated how good our interfaces were. The interfaces to the back end, our APIs, the robustness of those APIs, our ability to move content en masse up and down quickly, the way to chunk interface data coming up and down, all of that stuff. We completely underestimated what it would take to actually do that at scale. The second thing that we really messed up was we didn't understand our desktop use cases. We didn't have a product team that was big enough to assign somebody to go understand all of the desktop use cases. It just seemed like, hey, I have a Dropbox account, and this thing just syncs stuff up in my account. It seems pretty good. We're just moving blobs of data up and down. This is just binary data moving up and down. How hard can that be, right? But it turns out our product was a different product. Our product could have 1,000 people in one folder, each of whom were syncing data to their desktops. One person could make a change in a file and then have to have that file change propagated to 1,000 people. If that file was a 50 meg file that I made a one-line change in, I'd be propagating 50 meg to 1,000 people. This is killing us. And sometimes when you make decisions like this, you can't see the financial impact. What was amazing to me, this is the first time that I'd ever seen like crappy product decision, financial impact. So I've kind of, these are not like totally accurate numbers, but this is very closely representative of what we saw. So the actual bar, it's 100% par, customer churn by reason in dollars. And you could see in the light blue that our sync product could be traced specifically to a quarter of our churn dollars. I don't know how many of you guys are building software and where you really look at churn and understand who's churning out of your business. But you churn a quarter of your people because you have a bad product problem. This is not good. I would not want to see this happen to anybody. And you could see in addition to that, I had a green bar with product-related problems and low user adoption. So our churn numbers were largely driven by product and not anything else. Not pricing, not people leaving because they were acquired. I mean, all of that stuff. So we essentially had to put in place an engineering team of almost 20 people. Think about this. You're a $25 million company. You had to find 20 people to hire to put into place because you had put a product in market that was not okay. Procter & Gamble was a customer at the time. And then the second thing that we did was we had to redo the whole thing. So we started from scratch and rebuilt the whole sync infrastructure. It took us almost 2.5 years to do that. So 2014, millions of dollars, 2 years of rework. I think some of this data in its original form came from a board meeting that I presented at because this is a board level problem at the company. And you can see what we ended up doing, being able to cut back the percentage of dollars churned by our sync product pretty dramatically. This is one of the things I love about product management. If you can get to a place where you can assign a really clear number and goal and objective to somebody, then they can really cleanly see whether whatever they delivered actually solves the problem. It's pretty rare you see this because a lot of product problems that we solve end up being nebulously reflected in data that comes back to us. And it's nice to see, so this is really helpful because then you can at least see what's going on. It's pretty rare that it's this clear cut, but I thought this was kind of an interesting example. So we learned a lot of lessons from this. I mean, first of all, I did not have a thoughtful framework for thinking about contractors, and I still see this in companies I work with today. Just like we have contractors doing this or this and this, and I go, why do you have them? Like, how did you make that decision? Well, we didn't have anyone to do it is usually the answer. So I think having a really good framework for saying, hey, philosophically, this is how we're going to attack the world. Some things are going to be done by contract, some things are going to be done by us, but we are going to keep a bunch of the important stuff for us. And the most important thing I would say is I'd love to never outsource user experience again to anybody. Now you've pushed out your user experience to somebody else. It's really it's debilitating from a product point of view. So a couple lessons learned. Okay, my second story. Introducing the iPad bundle. So this was 2010, 2011. iPad was coming out. So I had a team of product managers pull this together. At the time, I don't know if you guys have marketing teams that you work with. Our marketing team was flooded with stuff. So they created this thing called the project blueprint form that we had to fill out. I had to go find this. So we had to tell, like, what vehicle are we using? Why are we doing this? The single message we would like to communicate. I have 5 minutes left? I can't possibly have 5 minutes left. I need more than that. Shoot. Okay. So what ended up happening was we had this iPad bundle in place, and we brought this to, we said, hey, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to deploy Box with a bunch of other iPad apps. It's going to be a bundle. It's going to be super cool. What we weren't doing was we were not really thinking about what was happening in the marketplace. So we thought about it from a micro product point of view, but what was happening in the marketplace? This is one of my favorite diagrams. So in 2000, this is what you're seeing here is the number of units shipped of computing devices. So the big blue line that kind of goes all the way around the edge is PCs, right? So PCs started shipping in the 80s, and they, kind of peaked out, volume-wise in 2011. But look what happened when the iPhone came out and the Android devices came out and iPad came out. We had computing devices being shipped out at volumes never before seen. Within a year or two, they matched the all-time PC highs from a units shipped point of view. Some massive sea change. And so what you ended up seeing was that PCs really lost dominance in that time period. And so what ended up happening was PCs lost a tremendous amount of market share. This is where Microsoft lost a lot of its early control in the enterprise. And this just happened. This was a massive, massive change. So, and we were going to introduce the iPad bundle, Box plus a couple of note-taking apps. So this is Aaron. I found a picture of him in the look that I was looking for exactly. He's got this look when you bring him something where he just thinks you're an idiot. And this is roughly the look that we got. He said, are you kidding me? Like, we have a massive sea change in computing, and what you're bringing me is the iPad bundle? And so we went back to the drawing board and rebuilt this as Box One Cloud. We created a brand name for it. We said, this is the cloud of applications that's going to be built around Box and its platform. And by October of 2012, we sent a bunch of people after every single important productivity app we could find. So we set people loose. If you guys were, if we were here right now, I'd have like 3 or 4 people circulating, talking to all the app developers in the room, trying to figure out which ones of them should be part of this one cloud ecosystem. By October of 2012, this was about 7 months later, we had over 200 one cloud partners, and then we launched this thing, right? So for me, and when we drove a one cloud sign truck around Apple's WWDC, we drove this around WWDC until they asked us to get it off the streets. In which case, and then at which time I left it on the streets for another 24 hours because nobody could tell us not to take that on, not to have that on the streets, right? So this was our one cloud truck. We did our first $1 million deal because of one cloud. Eli Lilly deployed 35,000 iPads to their employees using Box and a note-taking application that was one of our one cloud partners. That was our largest deal in history. And our lessons learned. What's your product position versus the industry's biggest trends? Product features with ecosystem leverage, right? Build things that have leverage in your ecosystem, and then go big and or go home, which is like, if that was a fail, fine, it was a fail, but at least we took it on because it was a massive market trend. I'm gonna get to one more story, and I'll move through this pretty quickly. I didn't realize I was using this much time. This story is about platform. So when people look at Box today, you see kind of, hey, I've got the Box application or the mobile application. Any of you guys, I bet you, if I sat with you and said, what is your app that you're building? You'd bring out my a mobile device, you'd show me your app, and I'd take a look at it. And actually, what I think product managers should all be able to do is draw this. That means, like, draw me what the technology is that runs below what you've got. Where is the leverage in your system, right? It can't be your app. Your app almost never has leverage. What has leverage is the fact that you have an action log framework that tracks every single event that happens to content in your world. You have a method for storing content objects at scale with their metadata that's really unique and differentiated. You have the right kind of search engine deployed on the right kind of stack so that you get information out of the first X number of bytes in the object, whatever it is. So this was actually my first diagram of Box that I drew. It took me about a month talking to every single architect, and I didn't even I don't even think this is that good. I just spent a lot of time like talking to people. But the nice thing was we pulled this together, and then I threw this up on a slide in front of the engineering team. I said, is this what we do? Like, is this it, right? And one of the nice things about this as a product manager is it forces you to get into the tech. So sometimes if you were to interview with me, one of the things I will ask you as a question sometimes is, draw me your product. And it's like an open-ended question, and draw me your product kind of gets, sometimes somebody draws me a user interface. Sometimes people draw me an architecture diagram, but I'm always interested to see what product managers say when I say, draw me your product. This is one of those examples. We spent a lot of time building Box Platform. This is the original Box Platform team. And a lot of our early growth on the platform side was built around visits to our developer site and the number of API keys issued. So this is one of the things that ramps the company. We finally got out of this is one of the big leverage things. It finally got into everyone's head that Box was not just Box.com. Box was a platform, right? And you cannot declare yourself a platform. Other people have to declare you a platform. And when you do enough of this, you get this, which is that then people see you're a platform, or they call you a platform, right? You're no longer calling yourself a platform. TechCrunch says cloud storage platform. Box will fight Google Drive with an ecosystem push, right? So these are the kinds of things that really drive leverage, and it tells you that you've done a good job of repositioning the company. And for us, this is critical. We could not be positioned as like a cloud storage app, or at Box.com, a cloud storage location. How am I doing? I'm out of time. All right, okay. So I'm apparently running out of time. Can I finish on a couple notes? Okay, let me see where I'm gonna finish. All right, I had one more example to talk about, which was primarily the enterprise consumer mix. But I'm just gonna do one more thing that's career-oriented, and then close and we'll take some questions. So product managers, hardest job in the company, no question. Also the best job in the company, I think in most companies. Just you're in the middle of everything. These are product companies. You're a product person. These are great jobs. One of the things I'm asked a lot in forums like this is, what does it look like to get hard critique from people around you, and what does that hard critique look like, and how do you respond to it? Kind of just as a career discussion. So I usually bring out a couple of these things. So the first is a set of comments from Aaron. So these are written performance review for me. I had two bosses at Box. I have Aaron, who CEO and works on product decisions with me. And then on the other side, it's COO, Dan Levin, who is very operationally focused. So the first comment here is regarding soft, often not thinking big enough. I mentioned this earlier, right? Sometimes you go through a career and you kind of get a little bit cautious because of things that happen to you over time. And you can see this. He's talking about not thinking big enough. Usually, we just don't have enough quantity going, right? So if I'd say, hey, Aaron, we just delivered 1,000 one-cloud apps, so you'd be like, well, how come that's not 1,500? How come that's not 2,000? Why aren't you pushing on this? And he could see here, even at 200 or 300 people, he said, I don't see us looking like Microsoft in our efforts here yet. Hard customer. But no one's ever happy, right, with you when you're a product person. Second comment, Chris could move a bit faster and think more strategically. Something like platform pricing doesn't need 3 months. It needs 1 to 2 meetings, testing it on a few developers, and we move on. Actually, it takes years to figure out developer pricing. But the standard that Aaron's got is, how come you can't friggin' figure it? You have so much experience. Figure this out. It's like it should be like 2 meetings, and then let's put it on the website, and we're off and running, right? Not an easy customer, but I think the best people to work with from a product point of view are leaders who really push you, and that's what I really needed in career at the time. You can maybe even see that a little bit from my journey line. And then on the other side, this is Dan, who's very operationally focused. He's a deep voice. And this is how we gave feedback at Box. And we often write to each other in this form. In the spirit of sharing feedback, I wanted to tell you I was quite disappointed by the conversation. Then he does his kind of lightweight. I think of you as a smart, organized, thoughtful, strategic guy. But he's very, very clear that he was looking for something I didn't get him. He said, yesterday felt, this is around OneCloud. Yesterday felt disorganized, not well thought out, not well framed, and generally not up to the standards of work I expect. So please get into a process that I can help you with. I'd love and if I can personally engage or help in any way, I'd be delighted to do so. I love Dan and the way he brings that feedback. But I think that no matter where you are, if you're not getting this kind of feedback, you need to ask for it, because you're never doing everything people want you to do. And if the people around you can really, really drive on this with you, it is so helpful. And as a product person, I think product people get a lot of noise, and they don't often kind of get very, very targeted feedback. So my final advice, hang in there. It's a fun job being a product manager. It's actually a really fun time to be in enterprise software. We didn't talk a lot about consumer to enterprise split today, but there's a lot. I could spend another hour on that topic. So, but let me close, and then will we go to questions? And then I can even spin back a little bit if we need it. So let me close there, and then we can take questions if you have them. Yeah, please. Yeah. Okay, good. So the question is, at what stage would we hire product managers into a company? So here's what I'm seeing today. I think companies that are around 50 people or so, I'm seeing have like 2 or 3 product managers. Like, I'm trying to get the ratios. Like, normally you can tell me how many people are in a company. I can tell you what phase they're in and like probably what their revenue is. And I'm seeing like at company sizes of 50, you start to see maybe 2 or 3 product managers. And that's roughly the ratio. That's roughly the time that you start seeing product managers hired in. I actually think you should go earlier. Like, your first product manager should probably be in by the time you're 25, 30 people. Like a real product manager, somebody who does Scrum and somebody who writes roadmaps, thinks about those kinds of things. But I think at 20 to 25 people, you're probably ready for a real PM to be in place. Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you. Huddle, yes. Yes. Okay, yeah, question around a company called Huddle. You guys might have seen Huddle. They were a competitor in our space. So they had cloud files. One of the things that they did was they really pushed themselves to be a SharePoint, cloud SharePoint player. They really made a lot of noise around replacing SharePoint, if I remember. And one of the hardest things so we've debated this so often. SharePoint in our market is kind of the big elephant that runs around in enterprise. There are massive SharePoint deployments almost everywhere. And one of the big challenges with SharePoint is built around the concept of a site where a group of people work together, have a calendar, a list, a bunch of other things. And we looked at that multiple times during our history, and we always chose to go away from it because we felt that the mode of interaction was outdated. That means that people coming to a site where they could see all the things going on in their group, that was an outdated mode of interaction. And so every time we were tempted to build it, because we got so much push from our sales force, why can't you just build calendars or lists and build us a little bit of a SharePoint site and I could take out SharePoint? Well, the answer was we didn't think it was a good mode of interaction. I think Huddle really doubled down on that. They just never got traction. But I actually think that's where it came from. And I have a lot of respect for the Huddle team. And sometimes it just doesn't work out for you. And the other thing is Huddle just never got, so our market was you either put $500 million down or you go home. So they ran a shop, you could see them, they were running it profitably early on in their life cycle. And when if you ran a cloud content system for enterprise profitably, you were doomed because you were just never gonna get the market share you needed. You were never gonna get escape velocity in a market where your competitor is Dropbox, Google Drive, and then Microsoft. Like, you're just never going to get velocity out of that. And so sometimes, you have to look at your company today and say, hey, listen, do we have what it takes to get velocity, if that's really, really required or not? And if we don't, and we're running it, so when somebody tells me they're running it profitably, I always look at them and say, all right, well, that's an accomplishment that you're running it profitably. But what is your long-term goal? Is your long-term goal trying to dominate a market that actually means something? And if so, running it profitably is an accomplishment for now until somebody outspends you to the next piece. Yeah, please.
When you got that brutal feedback,
yes.
What was your initial reaction, and what do you think your reaction should have been?
Yeah, so it is never fun to get an email or see feedback like that. And most of the time, I think feedback should be given immediately and this is actually, Dan's feedback came immediately on the heels of a meeting we were in. So you never feel good. I think the thing about feedback is you should never react to it emotionally. Like, I think that you should just, okay, I saw it and I'm riding Caltrain home or something like that. I'm just gonna let it chill for a while. But here's the other thing. I think, and I hope this is good news for you, the longer you go in career, the more that you kind of know who you are. You know what you're good at, and you are secure in what you know how to do and don't know how to do. And so it's easier to take feedback like that from me today than it would have been 10 years ago. And it's like, yeah, I know. Okay, maybe, yes, I can kind of see how that was a bad meeting and didn't go well. So my note back to Dan was, and your note back should always be, I totally hear you. And here's the next step, right? I think that's really the only thing you can do. With Aaron, it's just constantly, you're not moving fast enough. We got to move faster. And a lot of that, so for me, this is what I did. I don't know if you guys work with difficult founders, but Aaron and I, for the past 2 years, have had a standing Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. meeting. That's almost always face-to-face. So you would have found us in Redwood City at that Chipotle down there. We sit every Sunday at 3 p.m. We sit down, we're in shorts, we're just kicking around on a burrito or something like that, and just getting on the same page. And then I'll hear from him feedback. I think you've over-rotated this. This isn't working the way I want it to work. And so then we head into the week on the same page, and then everybody else then works off of our page, right? So that's kind of a nice way to do it. So I think every person has a different method that they use to kind of figure out the path. But yeah, I think your first reaction is always a tough one, and you just have to get past that. Other questions? Yes, please.
Can you tell us story 4?
Story 4. Really quickly, thank you. How this works? I love that. Oh my God, so good. All right, really quickly on story 4. Story 4 tonight is about our roadmap at Box. And almost every enterprise software company roadmap looks like this now. I have a group of people who work on enterprise software features. These are security, administrative features, control features, all of the things that have to do with enterprise, like key management, those things. Then you have a group of people who look like they should be working at Google or Facebook or Pinterest. They work on user experiences and they build great user experiences. And then you have some platform guys who are building APIs and thinking about batch API processing and things like that. This is my recommended split of how that should go. It's always going to be a split. And in any growing company, the pressure you will get is, I can't close General Electric unless I have key management. That's the pressure you're going to get. You're never going to get the pressure of, hey, we have users saying they don't really like the way that this stuff works. So you're always going to have the pressure to close a deal, because that's where the pressure comes from. You have a physical salesperson telling you that they've got a problem. And all of the administrative and security stuff is hard. It's like enterprise settings and reporting and dashboards and HIPAA and FedRAMP and all of the things that, wow, I mean, like, if I had to take all of you, this was my product team, and we were going to focus, and I said, guys, this is the North Star, I couldn't get many of you to come with me, probably, if we were just going to build administrative products for the next few years. But this stuff is critical. Like, this is the critical stuff that sells product. So getting this nailed is so, so important. And the benefit is that then you end up on the other side with lots of logos. And the product managers on my team who worked on enterprise features over the years, they're the ones that notch logos. They're the ones that they're asked to go out in the field and talk to customers, and they're traditional enterprise. And I think the biggest challenge that I have, and this is the story 4 part of it that I wanted to emphasize, is that you can fall back into this setup. So no matter what you guys do, if you have free users today and they come into the product, as your company grows, they will become less and less important to you. They'll become a marketing expense because they're just there to kind of serve the front end of the funnel. They're not worth that much to you. They churn out at a big rate. They don't end up, the data link between them and real revenue is really tenuous, right? Over time, this has certainly happened to us, right? You'll see your free users go like this. Your paid users hopefully will go up at some rate. The problem with most enterprise software is paid users and enterprise sales tend to be pretty linear, because you're selling at a certain level, you start selling it to bigger companies, it's sales guys, and you have a linear sales path. The problem is, if you haven't built a product that really drives on its own, your overall usage will also go up at that same linear rate. So what you're seeing here is a rough graph of what I think is a problem in enterprise software today, which is that you end up with a product that largely mirrors enterprise software products of the past. I sold 100 seats of Workday into the organization. There were 100 employees and there were 100 users. And you never got leverage, right? And very few companies, and I think one of the nice things about Slack although they have all the same other problems that we talked about here, is that Slack has the potential to generate more overall user growth beyond what they're selling into the market today, and that creates a growth engine for them that could be pretty interesting if it's genuinely good. The problem with most of the software products that you see today, though, is you end up in this linear growth path where you're just essentially growing at the rate that you can bring paid users in. And your enterprise software hasn't then taken that new dimension of driving more people in some viral form. It's not Instagram or Pinterest or some other product that has a natural feedback loop that brings people back in. This is the big challenge in enterprise software today. That's why a lot of companies in enterprise software are hiring growth people. Like, so I'm looking for the growth guy that, you know, worked on Facebook growth or whatever. And it's because a lot of us are trying to figure out how to spike that top line and do the things that a growth company does. So that's my fourth story today, is how to make this happen. And I think the challenge there is no matter what you do, you have to advocate for all of these different roadmaps. And sometimes like the DNA of Aaron, he loves these consumer products. So Aaron loves the consumer product. So I've advocated hard for enterprise over the years. And one of the reasons why I think we're balanced is because, you know, we've got an advocate on both sides for these. My final thought on here is that you just have to accept that nobody will be happy. And so here's how I know you're doing a good job as an enterprise product manager. No one's happy with you. I mean, that means that no matter what, you can't because you can't satisfy everybody. You can't put a product in space that's got amazing consumer features, satisfies all the enterprise stuff out there, and has an amazing platform. It just can't happen. So I know that when you tell me you're running a shop where nobody seems to be happy, I know you're walking a line somewhere. At least it's your line, and that's where you know, I think that that you're doing a good job, is you run a balance here. And I think that if you frankly went and if this was an audience of all Box employees, and I see no Boxers here, but you know, if this was an audience of all Boxers, I think every one of them would have a problem with me in some form. Whether it's because this user experience still sucks after 4 years, whether it's because I couldn't sell this deal because you were unwilling to build this product, or like this wasn't there because the integration wasn't there. There's always that kind of stuff happening. So that was my fourth story. You're welcome. Thanks for asking. Yeah, please.
The last things you mentioned was on pricing. Do you have any advice for companies that are just entering the market that haven't spent years figuring out pricing? I mean, what are some strategies that you can do to figure out where to start?
Yeah, so the question is about pricing in enterprise software and how do you price? So first of all, there is a lot of expertise on pricing now in the Valley. I don't think there used to be. So you can go hire someone who used to do pricing at Salesforce or pricing at PeopleSoft or pricing at Workday or pricing at Box now. So I think you need people like that, and this is a great forum. I don't know if this is a good forum for somebody to talk about pricing, but like that's one of the hardest things for us to do. What I've done a lot in my career is proxy pricing. So when we did developer pricing, we studied the crap out of how AWS was pricing its core componentry for developers, how it did asset pricing for any number of different assets. So I think the best way to get into a pricing discussion is to figure out your best proxy and really understand it. So for example, looking at Amazon today, they don't really charge you for storage of anything. What they charge you for is bandwidth. So they get you on the movement of bits. And they know that is where they're going to maximize whatever money they generate from you, because you might have a lot of static information. That's not going to be that interesting to them. What's going to be really interesting to them if you're active. And so we did a lot of that kind of study for the latest developer pricing that we did. But a lot of proxy pricing to figure out your angle and where you're going. Last question? Really? Okay.
Would you consider Slack enterprise software? And if not, what would you say it is?
Yeah, so Slack is enterprise software, in its purest economic generating form, and that means that they make money from us at Box or you guys or whoever paying them money for their software. That is their economic engine, and so they are in the enterprise. I consider them enterprise software for that reason. The other thing about Slack that makes them an enterprise software is they have all the enterprise software problems that we just talked about here. Governance, data retention, compliance, all of these kinds of things are big issues for them. So our largest deployment today at Box has over 400,000 users in one instance. It's at IBM. IBM just deployed Slack, and since I know the Slack team, I know what they're going through, right? I mean, now they're figuring out, it's not Slack for like 10 people in a startup in San Francisco. It's 400,000 people on a messaging platform at IBM. What is that going to look like? And it's I do consider Vim enterprise. That's my final question, really? I could just do this. All right. I have one more. All right, I'll pick one more here because I can see you.
I want to first follow up with the feedback point. That once you get all the feedback from many people, do you take them all in, or you will confront with them? Like, I think I'm right. You're wrong. And actually, my actual question is: were there any moments in your career that you realize that as a product manager grow to a new level, like aha moment, like, oh, I know I'm a better product manager than I was.
Got it. So the question is around, the first part of the question was around taking feedback and processing all that feedback and then making a good decision from it. And then maybe as a corollary, how does that make you a better product manager? Was there an aha moment in my career where I knew I was that I was the right or at the right level or doing what I should be doing? So I think the answer, first of all, is no matter what, you get all this feedback. We have now a product operations team that tracks all this feedback in Salesforce. It's like an ungodly amount of feedback because we have like millions of users submitting all this feedback. And so it's just, I think one of the hardest things is to sort through all of it. And what I like product managers to do is have a North Star. I don't care how junior you are. You have a North Star for your product. What is the objective? What are you driving to? And all of this noise that comes in from the side, you figure out, like, is any of that noise going to make it into the core? And that is your job as a product manager. So one of the things I do from a management point of view is I'm like, if you put me on a spectrum of micro to macro management, I'm off the charts macro. And that means I have really junior product managers who, like just working on stuff that maybe they shouldn't be working on. And if there's a problem and something goes out in left field, that's my fault. And if there's a win, then, and there's ownership, then I think we're all better for it. So for me, personally, so I figured out product management when I figured out my own personal style as product leader. And that was a number of years ago, and it was really that I was going to be a product guy who talked to a lot of customers personally. I made that decision. So at Box, if you talk to anybody who works with me, I'd do probably 150, 175 customer meetings a year. Like I will meet them constantly in our executive briefing center. I'll go out on the road and meet them. And so what that does for me is it gives me grounding and certainty that I'm seeing something myself, as opposed to being told something or seeing something coming through a feedback loop. So I built my whole kind of persona around that. And so, and that's when I knew I was making it as a product manager, was when I saw personally what we needed to do. I could make the call despite all the other stuff that was being pushed, and we would end up in a good spot. So that's probably when I really felt like, when I finally found that one thing that defined my style. And for me, it was just a constant stream of customer stuff.
Chris, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you particularly for amazing insight and also incredible humility. I mean, sharing negative feedback like right there. It's the first time I see that.
Oh, it's the first time you've seen that. Okay.
Impressive.
Cool.
All right, so we have a few minutes, and what we're doing now is our shout-out section. So if there's something you'd like to share, you're hiring, you're looking for a job, you're raising money, you're looking for testers, you're looking for something, come on over, line up right here, and you'll have each 10 seconds to pitch your idea. And please don't be shy. Come on over.
Thanks, Essie. So my name is Yura. I'm founder and chief product officer at UTeam. So at UTeam, our job is to make sure that the situation that happened to Box when they outsourced software development never happens to you. So we are a marketplace where you can hire full-time remote engineers from vetted dev shops in the same way you would hire an in-house employee. So this is kind of unique talent pool, previously inaccessible. Those guys cannot be found on Upwork or elsewhere. And yeah, so if you're interested to learn more, I will be in that corner. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vinay. I'm the CEO of Process Street. We're a workflow and process management platform. We plug into tools like Box and a number of others. We're currently raising a funding round where about $900,000 in ARR, 1,500 customers. And we very much believe in the consumerization of SaaS, the consumerization of enterprise SaaS in particular, and all the problems that SharePoint has caused everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nima. I'm with a company called Drone Deploy. We are flight automation, data processing, and photogrammetry for drones. We're hiring on our product team. Would love to speak with someone who's really interested in building amazing platform, very relevant to what we've been discussing today, and obviously a very interesting challenge and an interesting market. So please come find me if you'd like to speak afterwards.
Hi there. I work on a small team of product managers, and we were all frustrated over having all this product data scattered across various systems, from Evernote to emails, user feedback streaming in from all sorts of directions. We had Jira and Asana and Excel sheets, but we didn't have a way to see which customers needed which features. So we built Product Board. And if that sounds interesting to you, I hope you'll check it out at productboard.com.
Any more shout outs? Go.
All right, so 2 shout outs. One is I'm the lead for products that count for San Jose. We're going to be having we'll have our first talk in San Jose, sponsored by eBay in downtown San Jose. And it'll be by Geoff Redfern, ex-LinkedIn, Yahoo, and now at Atlassian. So that'll be a great talk on what he would have told his younger self. So interesting talk there. So stay tuned for that. And we have Feb 7th. So it's usually the first Wednesday of each month, and that's our program for San Jose. So stay tuned on Products That Count. The second, my day job, is actually at a different company, not Products That Count. So how many of you experience stress or anxiety in your regular day? Right? Yeah. So I work for Headspace, and which is a guided meditation service, and now expanding into much more than that, which is mental wellness. And the product that I work on is a B2B SaaS product to bring health and wellness into the workplace. So we have over 200 corporate clients using Headspace for their employees. So we have 2 positions. The company is based in LA, but we have a San Francisco office near Union Square. And we're looking for 2 roles, a data analyst and a front-end software engineer. So if you know anyone, let me know. And we also have an open house on Feb 8th over here.
Awesome. Any more shout outs? Anybody? Yes, come on over. Any more? If you have a shout out, please line up here.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Roxana. I represent the company PyTech Plus. We are based in Romania. We have 300 engineers. We build all sorts of solutions for startups, like web platforms, mobile application, products for startups in all sorts of stages of growth, from early stage to very developed startups that have corporations behind. So we build, our main clients are based in Europe, but we are looking now to develop more in the US. We worked for corporations like Renault to build all sorts of innovation projects, the French Lottery, and other amazing references like this. We have a few references in US as well, and I'm here to try to develop and to find new clients in the startup area mostly. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. So next month, at the end of February, February 28th, we are hosting the former head of product at Apple Beats to talk about how to build trust in your product. And so if you haven't signed up, we have, I think, a couple of early bird tickets left. I encourage you to grab one. I look forward to see you next month. There's another half hour of networking, beer, pizza, and we are closing at 9 o'clock. Thank you.